Excited to welcome you all. I understand today's been a great day, but I am particularly excited to be moderating this particular panel. It's a great topic, and we have just an incredible group of executives that are here to share some insights with you. So, the panel we're going to be this discussion is going to be around startup insights. What it takes to sell to large corporations, and this is a topic that really, I attend a lot of conferences. This is not a topic that people address a lot, but I think it really has a lot of value add. Particularly if you're sitting in the seat and you're with an early stage company and you're thinking, I want to grow, I want to ramp. What does it take to really get in at a big company and demonstrate what I can do and help my company ramp? So. Very exciting topic. So as a little bit of introduction, my name is Garret Herbert. I am a partner with Deloitte. I'm actually the managing partner of Deloitte's Silicon Valley office. I also have responsibility for our tech practice around the Bay Area. By background, I'm an M&A partner. I'm actually doing more M&A than I'd planned to do this year, but because things are super busy. But it actually keeps things interesting for me and with my various roles at Deloitte. So. My role here is to be moderator with this panel. So what I'd like to do first is introduce our panel, and again, it's a phenomenal panel. So immediately on my left is Patty Hatter. Patty is the CIO of Intel Security. So Patty, thank you for being here. Next up is Stuart Fox. Stuart is the global head of sales for Skybox Security. Next to him is Marina Levinson. Marina is a partner with Benhamou Global Ventures. And her background, she's also been a CIO in a number of places, including NetApp and Palm. Very excited to have Marina here. And to Marina's left, we have Alexandra Lopez. Alexandra is the Chief Procurement Officer for Cisco. So, again, phenomenal panel. Thank you all for taking the time to be here. So, maybe just to give everyone some context, if each of you can just talk a little bit about your role within your organization, just to give people a sense of, how you fit in the broader organization, just to give people context of that sort. So, Patty, maybe if you can go first.
Okay. So we've had a interesting transition recently within Intel and McAfee. So I joined what was the legacy McAfee organization 5 years ago, responsible for operations and IT. And we had just a significant transformation to go through. So McAfee had grown by a lot of acquisitions, so a lot of the business processes that stitched things together and the strategy that held things together needed a complete uplift. So that had been a big focus for us. Over the past 2 quarters, we went from being a wholly owned subsidiary, branded under McAfee, to being a business unit more connected into the Intel structure, especially as Intel moves more into IoT and data center. You can really start to see more of a tangible connection with the security business. So a big push of what we've been doing over the past couple quarters is that integration. As you can imagine from an IT point of view, that there's been some amount of heavy lifting, but we've consolidated the not just the CIO role for Intel Security, but the privacy, security, and product security for all of Intel under our banner now. So I think it's an opportunity to take a lot of the best practices that we had evolved and move those into Intel at that point.
Great, thanks, Patty. So, Stuart, could you give us a little bit about, both what Skybox Security is, that's not necessarily a household name, and what your role is with Skybox?
Yeah, you bet. So I'm responsible for global sales for Skybox. We're an enterprise and cybersecurity company. We've got about 600 customers in 60 countries around the world. Those customers tend to be sort of your global 2,000, 3,000. They tend to be very large, complex organizations, very demanding organizations, kind of like some of those sitting around me here. Should I get a little bit about what the company actually does? People have some context.
That would be helpful, yeah.
So we have a suite of solutions that give our customers a level of intelligence and visibility into their attack surface that isn't possible, that they've never experienced before. so that they can very quickly respond to threats in the organization. We also give them tools that allow them to automate a lot of the security processes they're doing, either by hand, sometimes not at all. When they're doing those complex processes in those giant organizations, obviously it's very time-consuming, it tends to be inefficient, also inaccurate. So also with the ultimate goal of helping them reduce risk in the organization and respond to threats.
Thanks, Stuart. Marina?
As you mentioned, I've been in the IT industry for more than 25 years, 12 of them as a CIO of a couple of technology companies. So as you can imagine, as a CIO, I've been sold to by everybody on planet Earth, big and small. And when I started my own technology advisory firm, when I left NetApp at the end of 2011, my focus was to help startups as well as VCs and private equity to understand how to better position technology products to make them more accessible and relatable from the senior IT decision makers' perspective, and make them more successful in selling into senior IT decision makers. About 18 months ago, I joined Benhamou Global Ventures as an investor. So now I'm kind of doing a complete 360, and now I'm investing in enterprise IT companies, primarily specializing in cybersecurity and in SaaS and mobility.
Thanks, Alexandra.
Yeah, thanks. So I've been with Cisco for 5 years, and similar to Patty, undergoing tremendous change at the company right now. We started our fiscal year in July with a new CEO who changed most of the senior management, including me. So I'm new in my role. And I am responsible for everything Cisco buys globally that does not go into our product. So for sure, I get sold to a lot. I don't actually buy anything, just to be clear. The businesses own their budgets, but my role is to really understand the market, understand new trends, and balance that with the existing portfolio and manage the risk portfolio of the company.
Great. So, I mean, yeah, so here to talk about what it takes as a startup or an early stage business to really sell and demonstrate what kind of value add, what kind of solution they can provide, to a larger corporate. So I'd like to direct this next question to Alexandra. If you were to think about your organization in terms of priorities and in terms of, how you buy, what is the position for an early stage or a startup company? I mean, there's the saying that, the saying used to be, you don't get fired for hiring IBM, you don't get hired for hiring Goldman Sachs.
Right.
I like to think you don't get fired for hiring Deloitte, but
So far, I don't.
But when you think about, so that's a big hurdle for an early stage company, because if you're offering something that's a commodity or there's a larger competitor, how do you do that? So if you think about your organization in terms of what are some of the priorities for Cisco where there could be opportunities for early stage companies?
Yeah, sure. So I think if you're coming with a position to be a Me Too play with IBM or Deloitte, you will have an insurmountable hurdle to get in the door, right? So I think it has to be something more distinct than that. What we're focused on right now, in addition to continuing to work with the large partners, is at Cisco very strong play right now on digitization and all that goes into that, from the simplification of processes and all the way through to the predictive analytics, and then going into automation is of great interest to us right now. Security will always be a big play for us, but again, looking for something unique and different. So I think one of the things that we're really focused on at Cisco, in addition to the core products that hopefully you all know that we make and sell, is really looking at the experience that we provide. So it's probably not good enough to just have a product that works really well. It has to be more of an outcome and a solution that solves a problem to one of our customers, or maybe internally for our internal use. So focused on the technology, but then combining it with the end user experience, not just the actual technology or service that you're selling.
Well, and Patty, I'd like to direct the same question to you. I mean, when you think about Intel security, things that you might look to a smaller company, that they might be able to provide that would add value, and that would cause you to notice and pay attention.
Right. Well, I completely agree. If people are coming to you with a Me Too play and you're a startup company, there's no value proposition there. In the technology space, there's certainly a lot of room in that area. And one of the things that we were talking about before we got started was as software sort of pushes a lot of the hardware products out, that is so much of an opening for startup companies because you don't have the whole product reliability, shipping kind of issue. It's more, does your software work? Does it scale? You can get through some of those hurdles much more with POCs and getting trials in there with some of the companies. So I think software companies, no matter what the topic, have much more opportunity now, but you have to think of what really is your unique proposition. What is you really have to understand the business problem you think you're solving differently than everybody else.
Great, thank you. So, I mean, Marina, you come at this question from a different perspective, and probably many perspectives, because I think, you're a venture capitalist, you've been a CIO, you're a board member, which we didn't talk about up front, but if you think about your VC portfolio, where are you seeing them successful with larger companies, and what types of offerings are they bringing to larger corporations?
Well, I think just reflecting what these gals just said, having a true differentiation and not selling a commodity product just based on price is extremely important. You mentioned that I'm on the public board of a company. I chair Technology and Cybersecurity Committee, and every quarter we discuss cybersecurity posture. It's very important to the board, and we're not alone. I think what has changed in the past, I would say 3 to 4 years, cybersecurity became a conversation at the board level. When I was a CIO, you have this conversation with an audit committee once a year. You talk about disaster recovery, you talk about cybersecurity. 20 minutes later, everything is done. Right now, boards are very scared. There were a number of incidents where customer data breaches resulted in CEO being fired, like at Target. Boards of directors are being sued for lack of diligence and care. So I think cybersecurity from that perspective is an area that companies will look at startups if they offer something that nobody else is offering. It's kind of almost easy to sell. And from the budget perspective, again, it changed. If you bring a differentiated cybersecurity solution that definitely addresses customer problems, a CIO will find the money to fund that. Budget will never be an issue. In fact, from the board perspective, we're encouraging management to invest more in technology and cybersecurity just to make sure that we don't have any incidents. And that definitely changed. So cybersecurity is number one. Again, if you have differentiation, it's easy to sell. I would say that anything related to cloud, SaaS, hybrid cloud especially, helping companies and IT organizations to manage multiple offerings, orchestrate, manage, procure. I think that also is a very hot area. I really like the area of mobility because I think mobility no longer optional. And each IT organization and each organization should have a mobile strategy. If they don't, their employees will actually create one for them. And with that, they will bring some challenges and probably cybersecurity challenges. So that needs to be approached proactively. And lastly, I would say that it's really interesting to see what's happening with IoT. This is very much of an emerging space, and there is no standardization at all. And I'm approaching IoT not from the device perspective, but thinking about the plumbing and how IoT, industrial IoT, needs to be secure. I think it's a very, very interesting space. No standards. I think big players are going to emerge, but I think it's probably a good area for startups to play. There might be a consolidation further, but I think it's a very interesting place to play.
Thank you, Marina. So Stuart, along these lines, so in your kind of intro, you'd said that Skybox has 600 customers, most of which are Fortune 2000. So you've been successful in selling into larger corporates. What's been the key to success in terms of doing it? I mean, Marina said if you're in cyber, that's a hot area. So is it that it? You make sure you're doing security and you're a winner. No, but I mean, give us. I mean, like how have you been?
You have to have Rolodex.
Rolodex too. But
Well,
have you been successful?
Part of the challenge certainly is getting noticed. I think that's the biggest challenge. So what we find is that large companies, even the largest companies on the planet, are very open to talking to smaller companies about security solutions because they understand that a lot of innovation comes from small companies. So that typically isn't a problem. Sometimes there's a due diligence process that we go through in procurement, but even there, the procurement people and the contracts people understand because the demand is driven by the business. At that point, we've already shown a lot of value to someone in the business, and we have an advocate, and they're communicating that we bring a lot of value to the company. So, like I said at the beginning, some of the challenge is just visibility, getting to the accounts, and their Rolodex certainly helps. Relationships in the industry help. We rely a lot on our channel partners. So we have a lot of different profiles, but some of the profiles are large system integrators, for example, or folks like BT. So while we may not have a lot of credibility necessarily out of the gate, and we may not have a lot of access, a lot of our channel partners do. So we rely on them quite heavily, and about half of our business comes from that side of the house.
So I mean, as far as that, having a channel partner, I mean, this is a question really for all of you. If you're a smaller entity, I mean, is that the best entry point into a large corporation? I mean, is that how it's best to get noticed?
Yeah, I would say definitely yes, with one exception that I'll talk about, but certainly because of our role in doing due diligence for if you're huge multi-billion-dollar company, you have to really manage your risk carefully. And some of the smaller companies, have a difficult profile, but if they're partnered with one of our, whether it's a channel partner or a go-to-market partner, et cetera, absolutely brings you in under kind of a safer umbrella, I think, safer for us and safer for you, to also protect you against, one of the things we really are cautious about with small companies, quite frankly, is you get excited that you got in the door with Cisco or Intel or whomever, and we become 100% of your revenue really fast, and then we change our mind and go somewhere else, and you're in huge trouble, right? So we want to try to balance that out for you as well. I think, and maybe we'll talk about this a little bit later, the only maybe exception is in the area of supplier diversity, where we are looking for, if you're a certified diverse company, then we are absolutely working directly with you and with the smaller companies to bring you in and ensure, again, that we're balancing a fraction of our portfolio with diverse companies.
If I can just add to that, in the enterprise IT space, when you're a startup and a new company, I think before you even start working with partners, you need to create kind of beachhead, 5, 6 important accounts. They have to be direct because your technology might be too complex for a partner. You need to establish that you actually can sell. And only you can be passionate about your technology before this technology becomes hot. So my recommendation, channel is a very important way to sell products, but you need to have your 5, 6 important accounts that will actually speak on your behalf, will be your reference accounts, and actually will create a credibility for you in the space. If you're selling to verticals, you want to create a portfolio of companies that are, considered leaders in that vertical. If you're selling horizontally, diversity of industries will be very important to you. But my recommendation is start with that and then develop your channel strategy as part of your go-to-market. If I can just only add one more thing, and I think this is very important. There's never been a better time for startups to sell their technology to enterprises, for 2 reasons. In the past, when I was in the seat, CIO was the only buyer of technology. Nobody else could buy technology, maybe with an exception of engineering. That has changed with cloud and SaaS, and now the functional groups can actually procure. It puts CIO in an interesting position. I believe it actually creates an opportunities for demonstration of leadership in terms of driving innovation into the enterprise, but it also allows you to sell not only to IT organizations, pardon everyone else on the stage with me, but to functional user organization, which frankly is much easier. So you have an option to either drive your solutions tops down or bottoms up. You need to be very clever. You need to understand the landscape. You need to understand which companies are more conducive in getting your wares through the business versus through IT. But now you have 2 ways to sell your products. And frankly, I think that's never been the case before. And last point, again, apologies to everyone on stage with me. I don't know if you read the article in the Wired magazine last Monday. There was an article about Walking Dead, and by Walking Dead they meant established legacy IT companies. I used to work for them, and I think there was a lot of exaggeration in that article, but the point was that the incumbents right now are under attack, and they feel that they really need to demonstrate leadership. What's good for you guys, they will be much more acquisitive because they need to bring technology both through organic development but also through acquisition. So I think it's phenomenally good time to be a startup as long as your technology brings differentiation to the marketplace. I'm going to shut up right now.
So I'll comment on Marina's third point. So because the other side, because all the cloud and SaaS go-to-market models really does open it up. But I will say on the other side of that, and this is where startups also need to not get caught because they, aggravate some constituent within the company, is there's been such a proliferation of, marketing, sales. Anybody could buy any SaaS solution out there, but it always requires data and some level of integration. And that is that takes resources, that takes connecting into the rest of the organization. It also opens up security issues and some potential privacy issues. But be cognizant of what you're doing and the path that you're taking and what that might do to people that you need to build relationships with within that customer base going forward. So you know how the politics go between organizations, so play those carefully, because if you do sort of offend because you think, oh, well, this will be an easy way to get to step A, but step B, I've really not set myself up well for.
It's an excellent point.
Just be cognizant of that.
It's an excellent point because you need to be prepared. You really need to understand the formal and informal ways the purchasing decisions are being made in a specific company that you're selling into. So you need to understand how Alexandra approaches her purchasing procurement. Is procurement powerful? Is procurement not powerful? Do you have to go through the IT? Do you have to go through the business? Do you need to go together? So being prepared and really doing research and understanding how those formal and informal paths work, I think is very important. And understand who the influences are, because sometimes you won't get a second chance. But good news is I think IT organizations are much less risk averse when it comes to new technologies than they used to be 5-10 years ago, and that's great for startups.
Yeah. But I would say that, again, that goes back to the earlier conversation about partnering where you can, because the answers to those questions is different at every company. Yeah, and it's incredibly hard for a small company to figure that out about everyone that you're trying to sell into.
Absolutely. I'd make a couple of comments, and one goes to your first or second comment. I don't remember. But one is about, first of all, I completely agree that it's really important to develop direct relationships, nurture those accounts, understand those accounts, build referenceability. But also you can think out of the box in terms of what your channel program is. Mm-hmm. It doesn't necessarily have to be, you sign them up, you train them, and you turn them loose. So our program, for example, focuses much, much more on developing opportunities. We're still very high touch. We're still involved in the account. We still make sure the account is successful. And I measure our success in the channel based on that. how many engagements do we get with them, I'm more than happy to do the work. So don't necessarily think in terms of a standard channel engagement. Also, one of the very biggest mistakes, and you just talked about it some, but I'll expand a little bit. The biggest mistakes that small companies make is they think they have a very cool product, and if they can just show the product to somebody in a large organization, somehow or another, magically, it's magically going to happen. So you have to know the customer, the account, very, very well. You have to understand how they buy and why they buy and what's important to them. You have to, I call it either a flight plan or a roadmap, a sales roadmap in the account. You have to identify who the user of your product is going to be, who the economic buyer of the product is going to be, which, by the way, very often isn't the budget holder. You have to understand who the influencers are in the area that you're trying to engage with. You have to understand what the wins and possible losses are for each and every one of those people, and not take shortcuts, and make sure you're working through the entire process the entire time. That's absolutely critical.
And I completely agree. And one thing, and this might just be me, so this might not be a broad statement, but you have to sort of understand how many, not just vendors, but startups we're talking to every day. Every day.
Yes.
And you try to be patient, because they're in there is gold somewhere, and we've found some great companies that we've started to work with. But one thing that I have, because I want to make sure the person that I'm talking with, the startup company, even though they might be small, they really understand the context of how the problem that they are trying to solve fits into a bigger problem. I don't even need them to understand my situation. I need them to understand kind of the bigger part of the business that they think they're working from, because it's never good when you start a conversation and somebody says, well, what are your challenges? And then all of a sudden it's like, well, we could do that or this, or it's like you're a company of 20 people. I know you can't. So, be very honest in your representation of how you're trying to solve, what you understand the business problem is, and how far down that path you are. And that will help build some credibility with the person that you're talking to, that, hey, this person just isn't obsessed with this piece, but really understands kind of, if it's security or whatever part of technology you're working from. But at least for me, that really helps to say, that person understands what they're doing, and you've just bought yourself another half an hour.
And you have 20 minutes to present your solution, and you need to phrase it in a way that it's actually a solution to a business problem versus a cool technology. And I think this is very difficult for startups. It's difficult for established companies as well, but it's paramount for you to be able to do your pitch in 20 minutes and communicate your value proposition, because executives don't have a lot of patience, they don't have a lot of time, and you need to really make your mark, and you need to make your mark very quickly.
Yeah, may I add something too?
Sure.
I think one of the biggest pitfalls also in not fully understanding your potential customer is if you don't understand what's strategically important to them, your competition may not be your direct competitors. So we tend to focus a lot on who our direct competitors are. The reality is, very often your competition is the 4 projects they have to do before they get to you. Yeah. You might be the very best at what you do, but you may be prioritized 4th, 5th, 6th on the list. And even the largest companies can only do a small handful of really big projects a year.
Well, and here's a question for the group, because when you think about how somebody can sell to you, I mean, it's everyone says you don't want to sell a product, you want to offer a solution. Are these companies getting in the door because you're showing up? Like, sometimes you may not even get your 20 minutes. Most companies are more saying, I have a problem, who do I find that can solve this? So how do you balance, and how do you make sure that you are on the list when a company identifies that they have a problem, that they find you? And Alexandra, I don't know if you have a view on this. People aren't selling to you, but your business owners are actually coming to you saying, we need help with kind of sorting through this. So how do people solve this? How do large corporates solve this?
They are selling to me as well. I would say that there's not like a list that we keep in a drawer. When we have a problem, we search through the list. It doesn't really work that way. It's more you coming to us proactively with an answer that is going to solve a business problem that we have. And generally speaking, if your idea is cool or interesting, we're going to listen to it. I think to the point before, you better know exactly what it is that you're selling. There's a particular startup who I think has something really good, but they can't figure out how to sell it to me so far. You know, I've met with him twice, and the second meeting was a lot shorter than the first meeting because in both cases he spent all of his time asking me about my business. I'm like, you know what, I actually know about my business. So what I'd like to know is what your business is, and you know, I'm not here to teach you. Yeah, I'm not here to teach you how to have a cool business model. So you figure that out and come back to me, right? And then I think probably the number one way, well, two things that are getting people in the door right now are unsolicited, right? Don't sit around waiting for an RFP to be issued because your name probably is not going to be on the list. If we don't know you, right? It's just not going to happen. And two is through proofs of concept. So we're very interested in very, you know, agile methodology applied to a short-term proof of concept. If you think you have something cool, I'd like to see it. I'm not going to pay for it, right, until you prove to me that it actually does something. And so that's the best way to get in the door with us right now with something interesting is to show us that it actually works.
I can't imagine a startup selling something without a POC.
Never, yeah, never.
Yeah.
Great. So we're running short on time. I want to just say to the audience, do we have one or two questions that we can ask this great panel before we break? Any questions that we want to ask?
Yeah. So if you've got 20 different security companies, each sort of solving a different component of security, how many security products can you buy?
Is there a punchline on that? How many security companies does it take to screw in a
It's
light bulb or something?
It's a fragmented space.
Yes, yes.
But
And you
Absolutely.
do have multiple
We do.
vendors.
But
We-
everybody has multiple vendors, but let me give a word of advice. So when you go out to dinner with a bunch of CIOs, you could hear you've been able to hear the trends change over the past few quarters of it started out, I would say up to maybe a year ago, 3 quarters ago, all the hot new startups, every cool new tool out there, and so, great technology, but another piece in the already crowded, disconnected security landscape of adding more events into a log that nobody's doing anything with. And I would sit at these dinners, and whenever we got talking about security, I'd just kind of sit back, given who I work for, I'd just kind of sit back and sort of see how the conversation would go. And it was always, ooh, do you have this cool vendor? Oh, I got them, so I'm not going to get fired because I got that company, so I'm good for a while. And then over the past 3-4 quarters, it's really shifted to this. Something's got to give. I mean, how many disconnected I say this knowing that the security industry has not served our customer base well, so we're all, us included, in this mess. But there is an opportunity in there somewhere, because just adding another layer, layered defense is great, but not at 50. When they're not connected and you can't make sense of all the data because it's not integrated anywhere in your SOC. The folks that work in your SOC are like, what do you want me to do at this point? So look at inflection points like that, because when you look across the technology, when you look across IT and purchases within IT, I personally think in the security space, this is the last place that there hasn't been even the first of the consolidations that have happened. So there's a real opportunity to think fundamentally differently, but don't just try to be another Me Too startup, because there's already quite a few.
Okay.
And another fragmentation is in the SaaS, application SaaS space. You can have, 50-50 in HR and in marketing, and they kind of look at capabilities, and for each capability, they buy an app. So I think there will be some consolidation, and big players like Salesforce and Workday looking at expanding and incorporating those capabilities into their suites, but that hasn't happened yet. So there are still opportunities to be acquired by Salesforce and Workday and prosper.
Yeah, I
final
would just say
comments,
that I've seen over the last year, maybe 2 years, a giant amount of frustration with large companies who've thrown a lot of money at point solutions hoping to solve their problem, and they just end up in more complex situations with more data that they have no idea what to do with. So it's a big challenge. It's
Great.
We have a view into that because part of our solution is to bring all that information together. So I hear that constantly.
Right.
So I want to thank our panel. I mean, I think the key takeaways that, as we've talked here, that really kind of ring for me is number one, if you're an early stage company, number one is you need to have a differentiated product, really a unique offering that's going to make a large corporate pay attention. Number two is, as Alexandra had said, you need to show up, which I think that's important advice. It's what Woody Allen's saying is 80% of success is showing up. So, and then three, being willing to offer a proof of concept, I think that really can demonstrate the value. So I really want to say thanks to the panel. Thank to all of you for being here. And that's a wrap. Thank you.